Hello, everybody. Chris McMeeking with Mobilely here. I've changed my format up a little bit. I'm trying to bring you some simpler content. I got some feedback from a friend of mine, and my videos were just a little too long. And so what I'm doing is I've built a website. I'm going to use my website to connect my videos logically. So instead of presenting you 40 minutes to an hour of content, I'll split that up over 3 or 4 videos. I'll let the website connect it all together. And so today we're going to look at the anatomy of a VoiceOver announcement. This was feedback I got from my friend Christina, and she is an awesome accessibility tester who relies on VoiceOver to do her testing. And so I want to dive deep into these announcements. You'll notice I'm playing with VoiceOver over here on the side. If you can see the screen, this is meaningless for now. I just want to keep my screen alive because it messes with my QuickTime demo. Right now, I'm going to focus on my web content because I want to give you some of the background on it before we start digging into live examples, because the fact is it's difficult for me to find consistent examples, even within Apple's applications, of this stuff being done correctly. And so let's look at our template, right? Note that when we talk about this template, it's not going to be correct 100% of the time. Certain controls can manipulate the orders of these announcements. A selected edit text field might announce these things in a subtly different order, or add some information that is different from this. But importantly, we can't replicate those behaviors without doing some hacky things to some private or pseudo-private APIs. And so when we're talking about this template is accurate in the simple case, but there are more complicated cases. And what we want to do is just get used to identifying approximately where that information is. And usually we can tell when a developer uses the APIs correctly. It's obvious once we're used to knowing what to look for. And the basic format of this is going to be label followed by a pause, with trade information followed by a pause, and then hint information. And there might be some value information in there. There might be some control specific information in there, but this label, trait, value, hint, this is going to be the usual pattern. All right, so let's talk about a simple example. Let's say that we have a shopping cart and we have a checkout button, right? So the announcement is going to be on checkout button, activate to give us your money, right? We have checkout, pause, button, longer pause, activate to give us your money. And that is accessibility label, checkout, accessibility trait, button, accessibility hint, activate to give us your money. There's our pattern: label, trait, hint, right? Let's talk about a switch, right? A switch has a modifiable value, right? So let's say that we have a switch to one of those interconnected home applications where we can turn the lights on and off, right? So the lights off, activate to turn on the lights, right? We have the accessibility label, the lights, accessibility value, off, accessibility hint, activate to turn on the lights. And there might be an announcement of switch in there. It depends on whether the developer did a custom switch or whether they're relying on the information coming from the switch. But again, that's one of those things that we can't replicate. You can utilize the accessibility APIs to create a perfectly functional custom switch, utilizing accessibility value and accessibility hints and these things. And the operating system might throw in a double tap to activate. When we hear that double tap to activate, I like to use the term activate. We don't want to sniff for people's assistive technology. If the operating system, if Apple's private APIs are doing that, that's not too bad, and that's okay. But within our applications, we want to remain general, because we don't know as much about all of the various assistive technologies that exist in the ecosystem, and also it's just a little weird to sniff for somebody's assistive technology, which ultimately is kind of poking at trying to detect their disability. And that's a little weird. So when we do hints, when I do hints, I like to leave them generic. Activate to turn on the lights. That is a perfectly reasonable hint, no matter what assistive technology you use. And that's it, right? This pattern: label, trait, hint, label, value, trait, hint. Different combinations based on whether those are empty or not. And sometimes they get switched up because of internal complexities of the operating system. We will cover that in another video. I'm trying to keep these short. Let's look at some examples. I'm on the Wi-Fi settings screen here. All right, so so what we have here is a series of Wi-Fi networks, and each of these Wi-Fi networks has some little images in them, right? So we have this 2302, presumably that's somebody down the hall, right? We have this secure lock thing. We have this 3 bars. One of them is grayed out, so we don't have great signal, right? We have 2/3 of a signal, and we have this eye icon here. That is a more information, get me details. Let's look at the announcements of this, right? 2302, comma, secure network, comma, signal strength 2 out of 3, button, actions available. All right, so we have these commas being read out. Remember, I in my effective voiceover testing video, I went in and showed you how to set up VoiceOver to read out commas to you. When we hear a comma that is being read out, instead of a pause, what we have is information that has been embedded into the accessibility label, right? If we were using the separation of label and value, we wouldn't see that comma word pop up. We wouldn't hear the word comma announced. We would hear a pause. We would hear this waiting, this subtle waiting that happens, right? We don't. We see 2302, comma, secure network, comma, signal strength 2 of 3 bars, pause, button, pause, actions available. What we would want to hear is 2302, pause, secure, comma, 2 out of 3 bars of signal, pause, actions available, right? So when we're hearing the word comma, what we know is that the developer put that information in there. And generally when the developer does that, it's going to be into that accessibility label part, right? So we don't want to hear the word comma, assuming that you watched my effective voiceover testing and you set up your voiceover to read those commas out to you. We don't want to hear the word comma. We want to hear pauses. When we hear the word comma, developers put that information in there. And on screens where you're expecting this label, trait, value type of thing, we don't normally see commas within accessibility labels. Maybe occasionally some punctuation in there is okay. Maybe occasionally a comma is okay. But then we should still hear that separation between subject information and value information. Right? We want to make sure that separation exists. Let's talk about the purpose of that. The purpose of that is for voice control users and other assistive technology users. As a voiceover user, I probably don't, it doesn't bother me that much. It doesn't impact me. If the value changes as a voiceover user, the benefit that I get of having information in the accessibility value is updates, but it's not that hard to swipe left and swipe right and come back, and you know the value changed because presumably you did something to change it. But as a voice control user, where I rely on the label to tap things, show names, look how busy my screen is here. I should just see 2302, 712 main, Apollo as my gray boxes. Voice control is drawing these gray boxes above these Wi-Fi list view cells here. And when I include all of that information in the accessibility label, I have to say things like tap 2302 secure network signal strength 2 of 3, which doesn't make sense. Not only that, but as a voice control user, I can't see that stuff. If I hadn't done the show names, I wouldn't know even what to say for those. So you're forcing me to do this show names thing when I shouldn't have to. I should just be able to say tap 2302 and have everything work just fine. And that's not the way this is set up. Not to mention what the separation of accessibility label and accessibility value means to other assistive technologies. But in this case, Apple has clearly marked this up incorrectly. We don't have that separation of label and value. We can see that in voice control, and we can hear that in VoiceOver because we're getting that announcement of the word comma between 2302 and secure network rather than a pause. And that is how we dissect VoiceOver announcements. We want to hear pauses. We want to set up VoiceOver in a proper way so that those punctuations don't trick us into thinking the pauses are there. Commas will come across as pauses. Go into your VoiceOver settings, set your VoiceOver up to read out punctuation to you. That way you know the difference between a pause and punctuation provided by the developer. In this case, we have all punctuation provided by the developer. We have 2302 comma secure network, and that is wrong. We want 2302 pause secure network because that denotes a separation between accessibility label and accessibility value. The pauses come from the operating system in the distinction between the different APIs that are available to developers. Name role value, WCAG 4.1.2. We want semantic correctness within our applications. That way, different assistive technologies can leverage the different parts of that API in ways that are meaningful to those users. So a voice control user doesn't have to say tap 2302 secure network 2 of 3 bars. They just get to say tap 2302. And for a VoiceOver user, it's all the same. That's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you for listening. And I hope, Christina, that this was a more concrete answer to your question, and that this can help you test with VoiceOver in a way that creates more accessible applications, not only for VoiceOver users, but for users of other assistive technologies, such as voice control. Have a good day.